So the only reason I announced the poetry series so early was because I wanted to talk about my process. But then I completely forgot to talk about the process, so I thought I'd do that now and procrastinate performing the actual poems because I don't want to do that. I have a cat in my lap, so the angle's a little weird, but whatever. The first poem I want to talk about is The Villanelle. So for this one, I struggled a lot because I didn't know what to write the villanelle about. Wait, no, I didn't struggle. I didn't struggle at all. Oh, fuck. Hello. The whole reason I announced the poetry series, Jack of All, Master of None, so early was because I wanted to talk about the writing process, but then I completely forgot about that and only talked about it like 3 times. So today I'm going to talk about my Patriarchian sonnet. So the point of a sonnet is like the point of a Patriarchian sonnet is that the first stanza poses a challenge or a question, and the second stanza answers that. And the challenge or question I have is, when does a man become a monster? Okay. Bye, cat. A bird flew past the window. Is, when does a man become a monster? Epic the Musical explores this concept, and I think it's a very interesting question. Epic answers it as when you no longer pull your punches. However, I disagree. No matter how much I disagree with all of what Odysseus does by the end of the musical, I don't think he's a monster. I think he's a horrible person, and all that, but he is still a person nonetheless. I personally think the moment a person becomes a monster is the moment they stop acting with empathy and start thinking only for themselves. No matter how much I disagree with a person at the end of the day, choosing to only do for themselves is what truly makes them a monster, even without feeling empathy. If you act with it, you aren't a monster. I also thought it'd be cool if the entire first stanza I only allude to the question till the last line and then I ask the question. That feels like better writing than outright asking the question in the first line and then having to figure out how to rewrite the question the rest of the stanza, which was really hard. And then I had an entire second tab to rhyme words with monster. It was very interesting. Another poem I'd like to talk about today is the found poem, because at first I did not intend to write a found poem, but then I realized it was basically just a bunch of quotes from, like, a piece of media, and I'm like, well, yeah, I'm fine with that, but, like, I don't want to steal someone's work. So then I realized I could just do found poetry from my book, the one called Puppet Boy. So I did exactly that, and it was actually pretty easy once I realized I could just take quotes from my work. I also had a lot of fun rereading my book, because it, told me a lot about my characters that I had kind of forgot about, because this is, a secondary project, the one called Puppet Boy, where my primary project is poetry and moondust. And then another one is the Shakespearean sonnet. For a good while I was putting this off because I did not know how to do it. And then I just realized, wait a second, time is a subject I know a lot about, and that's a very common subject for Shakespearean sonnets, and the whole reason I needed to do a subject that was very common was because the whole point of this series is to go outside of my comfort zone and do what is traditional with these poems. Another one I struggled with is the haiku. Only reason I struggled with that one, though, is because haikus, they need a certain number of syllables, and I am terrible at counting syllables. But I did one about nature and one about school because traditional haikus were usually about nature, while modern haikus are about modern life. And my modern life is school. I do a ton of school. That's like most of my life. And then the ballad, I really, really struggled with the ballad. Despite loving ballads, every time I thought of a good ballad topic, I was like, wait, no, that would work better as a song, and I kind of want to sit with this for a little more time. And it's not like I had an exact deadline of when this needed to be completed, but I did need to complete it pretty fast because I do have another project I want to do for the channel coming up, and I couldn't, like, just completely, I couldn't take as much time as I wanted to on all the ballads, but the 3 ballad ideas I had was one about my character type William, the Williams, one about called The Ballad of the Unloved Child, and then one called Mandy the Teenage Ghost. And then I realized all of those, I wanted to sit with them for a while and, like, perfect them as much as I could. So I ended up making a ballad called Tiny Little Things about, like, the little things people often overlook in life, because that is also a poem I wanted to do for a while, but it's not a poem I wanted to be, like, super particular about. And then another poem I had issues with was... I actually already talked about this, but The Broken Script, the epic, I had a lot of issues with that one. The easiest one to do was the limerick. Finding a topic was pretty hard, but once I found a topic, it was actually very easy. And also the free verse, I'm pretty good at free verse. The one thing I did have issues was what order did I want the poems to be in? Because the order they were in was just the order that my speech and debate teacher wrote them in on the assignment we were doing about, writing writing poetry. But, like, I was like, hey, wait, I'm not just gonna follow some random order because my teacher said it. Yeah, in the end, it was pretty fun. Here are some ideas I had that, like, I didn't go with. So, for the acrostic, I was considering doing Willow is a Bat, because, my channel name is Willow is a Bat, and another name idea for the series was, another idea for the acrostic was also adding the Master of None, because the acrostic I went with is just Jack of All, but I was gonna do Jack of All, Master of None, but I really couldn't figure out anything the Master of None kind of went with. And then for the elegy, I was originally gonna do an elegy I have already wrote, but then I realized how personal that elegy felt, and I'm not quite ready to share that with the world yet. I do intend to share it with the world, just not for a good long while. One second, I'm back. As I was talking about the elegy, I had one that I had already done, and I'm like, oh, less work, I've already finished this one. But in the end, I realized I'm not ready to share the elegy with the world yet. But I did think, like, since they're about kind of, like, remembering something, I thought I'd do one about, like, goodbye childhood. Actually, a lot of these are about childhood, not gonna lie. And then for the free verse, I was originally going to do 2 separate free verses, one to open up the poem, and one where I just find a random topic and, like, go off of that, but I did not do that. For the ghazal, I was going to do one that was, like, about my character Belladonna and William, I talked about this a little bit, but I actually ended up deciding to do something along the lines of if I ever had a crush. Um, and then, but I did determine that I will in fact be, doing a Ghazal series, I guess. Like, someday I'll just be doing a Ghazal about all my characters who write poetry to their lovers, to have them write a poetry. The haiku, finding a topic was very easy, but I decided I was going to do 2 of them because they were pretty small and didn't have a lot of substance, and I felt like you guys deserved more than 3 sentences. You get 6 sentences. I love you that much. And then for the limerick, my, friend was just absolutely, just giving off, like, so many weird suggestions. Like, every time I mentioned a limerick, she'd just name a different food. She wanted me to do it about food. So, in the end, I did it about, her being very hungry. The things she suggested were, like, peanut butter. I also did I also considered modifying a version of a poem I did a while ago called My Sweet Willow Tree, but I ended up not doing that. And then for the ode, they're traditionally an honorary poem praising something or someone, and I wasn't completely sure what to do for that. I considered doing Ode to the Poets Who Came Before Me, and then I thought, maybe Ode to, like, and then in the end I ended up combining all these ideas, but, like, there was, like, I was gonna do an ode to the friends who got me into writing in the first place, like, writing books, and if I hadn't gotten into writing books, I wouldn't have gotten into writing poetry. Again, for the Shakespearean one, I procrastinated this one so hard, because according to Google, they were about the complexities of love, time, beauty, and morality, or mortality. I spell it, I write it different each time, so I'm not sure if it's morality or mortality, but it's one of the two. But beauty is something I'm very insecure about, so I don't feel comfortable writing a poem about it. Morality scares me, and same with mortality. Both of them scare me, but I can easily do a poem about it. Love is something I'm not entirely familiar with. Like, I know what it feels to be in, like, certain variations of love, like, you know, familial love, friendship, platonic love, those kinds of things, but I don't know what it's like to be in romantic love, which is what this is usually about. But I ended up doing one on time, but I severely procrastinated it despite finishing it in an hour. And then, for Villanelle, I had a few ideas, like, I could, I was like, maybe I could do one about whatever my interest is in the moment, but then I was like, no, because then, if I don't finish this for, like, a month, when I'm going back on it, it won't feel as personal when I read it, and it won't be nearly as passionate. But then I was like, you know what, maybe I could do one about my characters, and I didn't want to do any poems about my characters for this, but this one did end up being about my characters. If any of this rant made sense, leave a like, because none of it made sense to me. I was kind of just talking at ya. Bye!